Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Alex Nichol, and this is Dirk Rehal. Dirk is the CTO. He'll introduce himself in a minute. But first, I just want to pick up on a couple of Jonathan's points. 35.1 million cars, and 35 million of them were in front of me this morning. Remarkable, remarkable. But we've all got here, and people still joining us now. The other thing I did notice actually yesterday was your shift happens. I was in a coffee shop yesterday and they came up and they said, we're closing now, you've got to leave. And it said, shut happens. And they pulled down these massive great things at the front of the window and just said, shut happens, so I like that. Yes, so good morning. Hopefully you'll find that we leave you with some tips and takeaways as well. Dirk here is a pretty good technologist, futurist, digitalist, anything else to add? Hobbyist. Hobbyist. So hopefully we'll be able to give you some insights as well. I think firstly, I want to thank somebody because I know I'm going to forget. But somebody helped Dirk and I in a bit of a rush over the last couple of days, put some of these slides together. So without embarrassing her, I just wanted to say thank you. Okay. She knows where she is. Where is she? Gone, hiding. Thank you. It was well received. Okay, so first things first. It's sticky, isn't it? I have to hit it a couple of times. BizView. Not many of you might know BizView. Some of you might know BizView for some of the demonstrations I've done at Mitel and Avaya and other places, obviously with our friends at Britannic. But we're a 15, 16-year-old startup. Still growing, still expanding, still open to new ideas. But we started back in 2003, where we tried to actually add value with clients, not by just pushing technology, but by trying to understand the problem in detail. And that stood us in good stead. I think it's been hard. It's been a hard message to get across for quite some time. But actually, we don't believe in you guys spending money and us guys writing software that will never be used. So we try to understand the problem and then use some of the accelerators that we have within BizView to be able to solve that problem in both a sustainable but cost-effective way. And this is sort of played out quite well, especially with things like workplace modernization. We've got tools where we can actually start mapping back how teams play, how outcomes play with those teams, how the vision and values map to those outcomes. So again, I know there's some demos going on later on in the tech teams. Dirk and I will be around, so any ideas or thoughts on how and some of the problems you might have in connecting and using APIs to do workplace modernization, there may be a project that we've done already that can actually enlighten you further on how we do some of that workplace modernization. We've done self-serve tools where people can automatically create repairs. They can send those repairs out through automated web chats all the way to their back office, plumbers and suppliers that are also invoiced all through connected APIs with open APIs and platforms. So, you know, there's lots of things that are deployable and reusable moving forward. So, back. What is digital? Digital is something different to everyone. Everyone we go and speak to says something different about digital. We've seen digital sort of take off from marketing, the CRM, and I've got a quote up here somewhere from Arthur Daly, who obviously said to his team, you know, go and find out what your customer needs, engage with them, get tight with them, and then sell them something they could well do without. Now, that's where CRM started from. And I know Dirk's can go through a little bit about our thoughts on CRM. In fact, anything M. Is that correct?
It is. It is
so whether it be supply chain management, customer relationship management, or any of these ERP systems, we're seeing things change, and things are starting to change quite rapidly now. So, you know, it's not just about marketing innovation and sending out chimp monkey and surveys of this and campaigns that from CRM. Things are a lot wider now. We recently did a piece of work for a well-known children's shoe maker where they just told us the problem. And the problem was that parents don't like taking their kids in to get their feet measured. So we came up with a solution where they could measure their feet up to adult sizes on an iPad. And it would only show the shoes, show the shoes that were both in stock and would fit the child. So we came up with this, we built this MVP out in, I think it was 2 sprints, something like that. And they started using it. Apple loved it because there's lots of broken iPads and things like that. So, and we said, okay, so when are you going to industrialize this? Are you going to go live with it? And the MD came back to us, he said, we can't. We can't because our culture, our unions, mainly went through a number of different things and they couldn't go live with it. 6 months later, we were engaged by the biggest children's shoemaker. And we were under NDA, so we couldn't take it forward with them. But they now, if you go into the biggest children's shoemaker, will now use a very similar technology to measure kids' feet and only show the shoes that are in stock. So this is the first example of where back office data has been brought to the front office staff. And we're all here today to talk about customer contact centers, but actually given if you're trying to give really good customer service, how can you do that if you haven't got the information for the front office staff to give that information back? So that is our first experience of that. And we've just done actually a number of these with organizations like Cosmopolitan Magazine, where we also we created an application where you could buy from the page. We did a round barcode that would explode an app so you could buy stuff directly from the page. But they weren't getting the conversion rate that they were hoping for. So again, we looked into the data because everything now is data-driven. And all we did was add a simple button, just a simple button onto the app that says, mine on payday. And they went from having some of the worst conversion rates to having some of the best conversion rates because the problem wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't they didn't want to buy from the page or from the application. The problem was they couldn't afford to buy it at that moment in time. So we allowed a new customer experience and we delivered this with a rapid sprint. It took us 5 days to add this new feature, this new function. Dirk's going to talk about features and exposing functions and not creating version after version. So there, again, it's another example where we think these big monolithic applications are hard to innovate with. They're hard to actually start opening up new value, new customer prioritized value. So, with that in mind, what is value? You'll see here that every business has 5 different types of capital. They have IP, they have people value, they have financial value, they have intellectual value, all this sort of stuff. What we try to do is create plays, not necessarily processes, again, something that we think, concentrating on a new process instead of exposing features that can actually solve problems and will start being questioned further. But what we've got here is showing the value and how quickly you can expose some of that new value. So we did a reward and gamification application for a big train operating company quite recently. And their throughput has gone up 18% just on how quickly and how efficiently they are now. It's also highlighted some inherent problems with some of their processes around double keying, around loyalty and data. So actually now we're starting to build on those plays to be able to make sure that they're getting the most value. So this is something we started doing and mapping back. There's tables and all sorts of real-life data behind this. We've got some quite cool analytics tools that this man created that give us that insight, whether it be sort of language. Language is changing. Anyone who's seen any of my demonstrations on social media would have seen some of the language, not all of it that good language, I must say. But the change in nature of language as well is something that we're seeing from the analytics that builds on some of these platform plays. is definitely a double click. So, digital. Digital is for everyone, but digital is also different for everyone. Is this a woman here? Is she coming from the shop? So if she is coming from the shop, we were just been told by, we engaged with a top retailer that's now the 5th top retailer, or the way that the retail market is changing so quickly. And they said, is this person leaving the shop? If it's leaving the shop, the last thing they saw of them was the bags walking out the door. So can digital help that? The issue they had is some of their staff had, not all of their staff are from the UK. And they said, with all the best will in the world, anybody with a Celtic name is never going to be created at the till in our CRM, because not many people can spell simple words like McLeod and things like that. So he was telling us about some of the problems they have just with customer engagement. So we've taken some things, but then he said, look at the same image again, Alex. So I looked at the same image and said, are they leaving the shop or are they bringing the returns back to the shop? What can we do with that? How can we make returns more simple? How can we make sure that actually some highly paid staff aren't doing simple low-hanging fruit like returns? Can we automate that? So we're actually testing now, and we're validating some concepts that we pulled together on robotic and automatic return handling process. Something that we've already created with a big online e-commerce organisation. So again, you know, these things are happening. They're happening for real. We've got an e-commerce provider where we're sending we're underpinning 30,000 orchestrated orders per month for them with no humans whatsoever. And that is taking real-time automated returns. It's creating tickets. It's taking complaints. And only the ones that we want to pass through to specialist agents for specialist returns, or even directly pass through to the end suppliers, because they're selling end supplier products. Why should we do it? I think, you know, a couple of slides here, you know, people are probably aware of some of the big names that have struggled in the past, but let's just go back and talk about and think about why. Sony, the last time Sony, and this came from Sony, they told us this, the last time they truly innovated was with the Walkman. Everything else they did after that was an iteration of the Walkman or some other product line that they had. So actually, bringing out a double cassette Walkman was it wasn't, you know, that took them 5 years to do that. They'd started the process, so all their competitors were thinking, this is great, everybody's walking around with a Walkman. So all their competitors are already starting to think, what can we do that isn't a Walkman? So they started thinking about MP3s, while Sony was still thinking about double cassette players. Obviously, other players, other proper digital natives were thinking way beyond the MP3 players. They were thinking about end-to-end design, and they were thinking about complexity and reducing complexity for the user, which is why they were never ever thinking about the actual device, although it was a very nice device and it held lots of essence and fabric in how they designed it. They actually were thinking about how can we open up playlists? People want to listen, and that's where Steve Jobs came up with these 1,000 songs in the pocket. It was actually about creating the playlists on the right device to listen to them on a simplistic device to make sure users could actually manage and understand and create what they were asked to be, what they were asking to do with that device. So a tip, focus. Focus on what you're trying to achieve end to end. Don't just think it's done. There's another. Was it Nintendo? They used. Has anybody put your hands up if you heard of Blue Ocean strategies? Not many. So Blue Ocean strategies are all about, and I think it's how old is it? 15, 16 years?
16 years.
Yeah, this is before iPhone and stuff. And this guy created it, and some famous companies have used this. And it's about taking yourselves away from red ocean, which is sharks fighting and all eating the same food, to a place that's blue ocean. So actually creating new products. When I say product, I mean service lines as well. I don't mean just physical product. I also mean service lines, and truly focusing on what you're trying to achieve in an agile, rapid way. And he was saying to us about Nintendo. They used this great thing, this blue ocean strategy technique, but then they stopped. So then everybody else caught up. So when you start talking, and Dirk's going to talk in a minute about culture, it's ongoing. You can't stop now. The world isn't going to stop. You need to start having frameworks in place, tools and techniques in place to continually develop and expose new features and functions, and to make sure your customers are happy and give you that step. Focus doesn't come easily to human beings, teams, or companies. Now, this isn't me actually saying this. A lot cleverer people than me came up with this. I was with a psychologist who told us this, and he was explaining why. But basically, and it's actually for school, and a mum put her hand up and said, should my son be listening to music whilst he's revising? And this psychologist and his 1,600 parents and kids in this big auditorium said, and he said, you've actually beaten me to it. And he clicked through a couple of slides, and he showed this picture of a guy going around a corner on a motorbike at 220 miles an hour. And he said, I can assure you he's not listening to music whilst going around that bend. He said, but actually, if you need your kid to listen to music just to get them to start focusing, that's part of the journey. Then you go in once they're focused and you turn it off. So again, I think we need to start using different tools to make sure that we can focus moving forward. Test your ideas, validate. There's every organisation we work with that's been successful, every single one tests, experiments, and validates. All the with absolutely, completely and utterly inclusive with every single one of them. Every one allows that to happen. So Dirk, again, will talk a little bit why that is moving forward. Another really quick story that I'll try and move on before Jonathan kicks me. Kodak, a young engineer, Steve Sassoon, for Kodak, invented the digital camera. First to market, they did it. It took them 16 years. They'd invented it in 1975 and released it in 1991. And by that time, they'd already been overtaken. So they were doing the ideation for all their competitors to then steal it. So the Casios and the Canons came on and created better designs and better devices to use. But actually, even they didn't get it. The Androids, the iPhones came along and just stole it from them. Because again, they understood the real problem end to end. And they started to understand what actually people want to do is edit photos. And again, they're the creators in value that have allowed Snapchat to take over my house and have different filters and stuff where I look even fatter than I really am, which is difficult. Again, the digital natives took on. Leading to another tip, look everywhere. Take everything you can, consume any ideas you can and test them. Because actually, I can assure you there's 5 people in a garage somewhere now creating something that could be competitive to your organizations, whether it's going to be on customer service that they want to do. There's a really cool 16-year-old boy that's created a card clash app, and now he's linking it. We're helping him to link it to Facebook. I don't know if people know here about the problem with card clash. You can use different cards. When you go across the underground, it will take money from both, I think. Actually, I've been told that doesn't happen, but I'm pretty sure I paid for more than 3 or 4 times in one journey when the government was low on money. However, I'm only joking. These things are out there. This kid did it at 16. He had a million hits over the summer. Quite remarkable. Guy in his garage. So, creating different service line, probably not competitive to anybody in here, but it's something that he did that worked well. So before I hand over to Dirk, I've got a couple of slides to quickly go through. We can show you and deploy some software and accelerators very, very quickly. I'm standing over here because that light is absolutely remarkable in your eyes. We've got some software that we try and do low-code, no-code where possible as well. So we actually create solutions to problems for you that we leave behind for actually organizations to try and involve themselves, because we just don't believe that actually your future should be in other people's hands. So we try and help you wherever possible do that. So I know there's some tech talks, and I think Gillen, can't see him because I've got so much light, he's at the back somewhere. We'll be doing some tech talks. I'll be around as well, and we've also got a stand. So any demonstrations on things that you might want to see, whether it be front to back office, social, workforce modernization, workflow management, orchestration, e-commerce, there'll be one of us that can show stuff there. But fundamentally, there it goes. I want to talk about why. Why is it that this is, why is it that we're being so heavily utilized at the moment? And it comes down to these big systems of record, okay? We're saying big systems of record, and then people wanting to orchestrate, innovate, integrate around the edges of these big systems because they're just too slow and not open enough yet. That's not true of some of them. They are moving, they're bringing in, we're working. We've got some wonderful use cases now with people like Mitel and Avaya, where we're using things like open media to push things directly through. It could be an e-commerce order from your website is now being linked with an agent so they can see what you're doing. It can be smart forms, all sorts of stuff like that. But what we're seeing in the main with these big systems and CRMs, you started, when was the, put your hand up if you've implemented a new any system in the last 5 years. Most people here have had something to do with an implementation in 5 years. How often since then has that been updated and upgrade? You might get a little bit here where procurement wanted to do this, or get a little bit here because HR statutory obligations for payroll or something like that each year. But typically, at best, there'll be 3 seasonal sort of updates where they do something with these big systems. It's just not quick enough. It's just not agile enough, and it's just not exposing enough value compared to your competitors. And what we're seeing is, and this is obviously indicative, and there's a huge gap now from when the system was put in to what you're actually wanting to do now with your customers. And not just test and expose it, but the gap of value is increased. So what we help customers with is making sure that you can rapidly do that in a 5-day sprint and test that. And if that's something then that is well received by X number of customers or all your customers, depending on what it is, then you can start looking at industrializing it and perhaps changing your systems of record, but actually making sure that you're doing the right things to start with. I was going to skip through the next couple of slides, unless you want to go through them, just because I've talked about the e-commerce bit already. I'm going to just quickly go through this. This is an organisation we're going to talk about this afternoon at the Platform Play, where we built we actually innovated their commercials. So what they had was some really best of breed commercials around their supply chain. And what we did was open up that to their competitors. So instead of them making 2.5–3% margin on they're the second largest European construction company, they've actually opened that up so other people can buy from them, even if it's work that they haven't won. So we'll talk about the Platform Play. And the other one was very much, we've saved 8 figures for a big organisation where we haven't automated it fully yet. This is the next stage. What we've actually done is integrated and orchestrated 16,000 suppliers, 19,000 subcontractors, 600 suppliers, and 700 staff from their Oracle system, because Oracle, it would have taken a 2-year program to update their Oracle solution. So what we've done is created this flexible wrapper, this digital wrapper, for them to add some workforce modernization. With that in mind,
thank you very much.
I'm going to hand over to my quiet friend Dirk.
So, before talking about the how, I would like to pick up with one slide that Alex showed, which was saying, digital is for everyone, which is actually true, because it's not just your customers who are exposed to digital in everyday life and are used to a very, very rapid way of development in the digital systems they are exposed to. It's also your employees. Yeah? So when we talk about workplace modernization, your employees are expecting the same kind of pace to expose new features and make their working life easier in the same way. So it's very important to keep this in mind. Digital is for everyone. I think this is a very important point. Who of you is actually responsible for delivering IT functionality, IT systems? Okay, quite a few. So who is able to deliver new functionality, let's say, in less than every month? Okay, it's not that much. So it's quite interesting, because if you look into the digital natives, like Amazon, they are delivering new features every 11.7 seconds. And I'm not suggesting you're getting anywhere near that. But what this actually shows is digital natives are not thinking in releases or versions. They changed their delivery model completely into what they call a feature pipeline. So they are actually able to pipeline new features and then launch them very, very quickly. Yeah? So it's very, very small functional increments that they are bringing live in front of their customers, their employees, but they do it in a very rapid way. And it's a very low risk, because every step is so tiny, the risk of failure is very low. And even if they get something out that doesn't work, they can basically quickly roll back. So they can roll back in the same 11.7 seconds if something does fail. And obviously they are observing how customers, how users are actually working with this functionality, so they are able to retire it again when it's not successful, and so on. So it's a very, very different way of working, and it's very, very different to traditional delivery. So how can we achieve this? Or how can we get anywhere near this? Or how can we at least go away from big releases and go towards this very agile kind of pipelining approach? So the first thing, and this is very, very important, is forget traditional ways of thinking, right? Digital natives are thinking completely different. And they actually invented a new word. At least it was a new word for me, which is unlearn, right? To basically get away from existing behaviors, learn something new, and give up this old kind of behavior. So we were in a project with a big telecommunication supplier, infrastructure supplier. One of the biggest, actually, and they at some point they found out, our business doesn't really work. So shipping boxes to the big incumbent telcos is not really a sustainable business and looking into the future. So they thought it would be a good idea to go into providing providing their products as a service. And they said, okay, we want to disrupt our market, and we want to become the first disruptor on this market. So we sat with them in a workshop with a fairly senior attendance, and we told them, okay, you need to change your behavior. You need to change the way you are working. And they said, no, we can't. And we said, why are you saying you can't? And they said, it's just not the way we are working. And we said, that's the problem, right? So it's really, really important to get away from this old traditional way of thinking and just be open to new stuff. Right?
I think it's fair to say that another very big organization that actually was in a different sector that had already gone through some pain in publishing, and we're still working with them now. We're creating some platform plays for them. Their mantra, they've been through all this pain, and they've actually said, we're going to outlearn our competitors. So they've actually got that as a vision and a value of the organisation, is that we're going to outlearn all our competitors. And that's some of the culture stuff that Dirk's talking about now.
So the next thing, and this is equally difficult for traditional companies, is actually failure is nothing particularly bad. It's actually something that needs to happen, because this is the best source of learning, right? If you fail, you learn. And it's not about not to fail, it's about to fail fast or to fail cheaply, rather than fail spectacularly and fail in a very costly way. Yeah, this is very, very important. And actually, I mean, I'm German, as you might hear from my accent. And I have to tell you, fail is not actually a word. Fail is an acronym, and it means first attempt in learning, right? So next time someone fails, say, it's okay. Failure is good, because you are actually, what you're doing is that you don't fail, you are learning. And this is a very, very important thing.
And a good tip, and remember, you'll be voting later on, ladies and gentlemen. So I want you to remember that when you're voting. A good takeaway. Carry on, Dirk.
So in order to fail cheaply and to fail fast is actually to do small steps, right? So it's not any longer about the Big Bang, where you have, I mean, I'm German, so we are kind of engineering stuff for a very long time. So we are planning a lot, and then we build it, and we stick to the plan whatever happens. And then at the end we find out, okay, we built something that we thought would be a good idea, but it turns out it's not, right? And it might even solve a problem, but even if it solves a problem, it solves the problem we had 6 months ago. But the problem we have today might be completely different. So it's really about taking small steps. Taking small steps. Don't forget any kind of Big Bang approaches. Yeah? Which actually comes to, if you do small steps, you can empower your people. Yeah? You can empower your team to work basically autonomously. Yeah? You can empower them because the risk is low. Because they might fail, but it's only a very small step and a very small increment when they fail, and they can actually learn from it. And there's a lot of creativity in teams once they are empowered, and you get away from command and control them. Right? Command and control it kills any kind of innovation.
We do, with lots of clients, and quite a few actually, housing associations, we've been doing lots of service design recently. And we also use things like design thinking. And one of the questions when we go through what was the inspiration for doing something is very much, can we create a culture where somebody can step off that, not knowing what's below, and they won't get told off for it, where they won't be pulled up in front of the board or a team leader or anyone else for doing that. So that's what we mean by total empowerment and allowing people to actually fail.
Yeah. So, I mean, we call this agility, right? This leads to agility and responsiveness. Yeah? It's not about following a long-term plan or something like that. So it's actually be driven by latest insights, and forget planning, actually, or don't forget planning, but forget the plan. The plan is nothing that has any value, right? It's about constant planning, and it's basically replan every time you have a new insight. And if you do small steps, and if you work iteratively, you basically have new insights all the way through, and be agile and be responsive to these new insights. Yeah, when we are building an MVP, we usually take two weeks to expose something to customers, to users, actually, to start this validated learning cycle, to learn from the actual customers and get away from assumptions, right? Because when we think we have a good idea, it's completely based on your assumptions that you are having. Yeah? You need to validate it by exposing it to customers or to users, and you will find out that things might be different. And this is good because then you can adapt and just build what is appropriate to solve the problem of the customer, right? Which actually leads to managed products. Yeah? And when I say products, I mean value delivered to customers. Yeah? It doesn't necessarily have to be something that is tangible and in a box or something like that. The product is whatever value you are providing to your customers. And this is what you need to focus on. Projects are just the way to deliver them, right? So to manage a project doesn't make any sense at all, right? You need to manage the product. You need to make sure that whatever you deliver has value to your customers. So, that was a lot of culture, actually. And as a CTO, I have to talk about culture because technology, I mean, it's almost the easy part of it. The difficult part is to overcome all these barriers to change culture, right? Because if you don't change culture, all this new technology stuff doesn't really work for you. It doesn't really bring the value that you need to be successful on your digital journey. Yeah? So when it comes to technology, we talked about this earlier, or Alex talked about this earlier, right? So it's no longer managing processes. Yeah? So CRM becomes irrelevant because there's no customer relationship management process anymore. Yeah? Your customer will contact you on different channels at different times, and you have to be able to handle these events rather than managing any process. Yeah? I'm working a lot for the TM Forum, which is the telemanagement forum, and they are a standard body, and they have something that they call telecommunication operations map. Which is basically a process map. And for example, they had one core process which was called order management, and they are now renaming it in order handling because they realized I can't manage an order process because along the line with more complex services, so much can happen. And so many events can come in, I need to be able to handle these events rather than managing an order or a fulfillment process. Yeah? So this is very, very important, and this is very, very important for your technology strategy because it's really about the ability in almost real time. And I mean, as a technologist, I can say there is nothing like real time. There's also only something that is near real time. Yeah? But you need to be able to process and to handle any kind of events. Yeah? So the next thing is also very important, which is you need to go away from monoliths, right? And you need to build your systems in a lightweight way, which doesn't necessarily mean it's something that is not scalable, or it's just something that basically falls over all the time. It's basically the way you are architecturing things. Yeah? And I kind of hate the word microservice because it's kind of became a buzzword, right? But the idea really is to have something lightweight in function, lightweight in business complexity, but also lightweight in technology. So it's not about building something that lasts over the next 10 years. Yeah? It's build something that you can change fairly quickly and fairly cheaply. This is a very important thing. Yeah? Build architectures for change, not architectures to endure the next 20 years.
It's also fair to say that this isn't either or. You can build lightweight components that work with your existing legacy, whether they be monolithic applications or not, to be able to expose some of that value.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And this goes to the next slide, actually, which is go away from on-premise systems. Because on-premise systems are actually are limiting the way you can scale, and you are able to respond to for example, a increased computing demand, for example, right? So the cloud is elastic, the cloud is flexible, the cloud is scalable, and I personally like this term of infrastructure as code, because this is what cloud actually means. It means you don't have your servers on-prem, but you have code which actually configures the cloud in a way, or computing, communication services in the cloud to underpin your systems. Yeah? And if you run a marketing campaign and you are expecting a lot of incoming events via whatever channel, yeah, you can scale up exactly these kind of components. So if you build your infrastructure in a very lightweight way, in a very microservices architecture way, and you build it on the cloud, you have all flexibility you need. Yeah? And it's not that difficult. And I often hear there are security concerns going into the cloud. The truth is, all systems that are exposed to the internet are kind of under threat to be compromised. And believe me, the cloud service providers like Amazon, like Google, they are very, very good at it. And I guess they are better in protecting their systems from evil than you are if you have systems on premise and you expose it to the cloud, or you expose it to the internet, and you have to expose it to the internet, otherwise your customers, your employees won't be able to access it. Right?
There's actually been a recent study that actually shows that organizations that even where they had operational technology that wasn't connected to the internet, they hired these hackers that could actually hack in to some of these siloed operational technology stacks a lot easier than they could actually get into some of the cloud-based software services that are being used by the likes of Google and GoDaddy and all sorts of things that are now opening up new services to organizations. And the American guy says, actually I'll send the link out, it's a great watch. And he says the problem with you Brits, well, they say, the problem with you Brits is you're server huggers, which I hadn't heard before. So there we are, we're server huggers. But he said the cloud's opening up to us. And I think we're seeing big adoption in the cloud now.
So these are basically, from a cultural and from a technology perspective, the recommendation we can give, or the way we are working with our customers.
Correct.
And I think it's fair to say most of our customers are quite happy with what we're doing for them. So it's kind of, we think the way it works very well. Yeah. So I think this headline might be actually, with respect to all the other speakers, I think it's the most important one today, actually. And it's about going digital is a journey. It's not an end state. It's not going digital and be there. It's about constantly changing and constantly adapting and constantly creating new stuff, being open to innovate, to do self-driving cars and then do flying self-driving cars and whatever. And it won't even stop with them, right? I mean, I'm a big fan of Star Trek, and sometimes this beaming thing. I mean, this is something I'm really, really keen on, but I think it will take a while. And really, it's about culture and technology. That's it, right? And the cultural part is the most important one. I mean, I saw more projects failing because of they didn't cope with the cultural change, rather than a project failing because the technology didn't work for them. And it's really about empowerment. I mean, I can't emphasize this enough, right? Empower your people. There's a lot of innovative strength in people, in teams. You just need to let it out, right? And welcome failure. Failure is nothing bad. To fail is the first attempt in learning, and it's about what are you doing with the new insights rather than you failed. And this is, in many, many traditional organizations, it's very, very difficult to deal with failure in the right way, right? Then what Alex also said, focus, 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 right? You need to have focus. You need to focus on the stuff that is really important. Don't forget forget all the stuff that doesn't really contribute. whatever you do, always ask the question why. Why I am doing this? Is this really helping me to get where I want to get to? And concentrate, focus on the stuff that is most important for you to get where you want to get to, right? Yeah, enable ownership. Ownership is very important. People need to own stuff in order to really identify and to excel on something. Yeah. It's about managing value in the processes. Processes is just the way for some to deliver value. And then my favorite point: avoid anything that is waste. Yeah. And waste this is a term coming from lean production, which actually means it's all that hasn't to do with actually delivering delivering value. So everything that doesn't contribute to delivering value is considered as being waste. And in software, there's a lot of waste is actually happening, because there's a study out that in traditional software only 30% of all features are actually used. So the 70% is actually waste. Yeah. Yeah, for technology, APIs first, or API is also a big buzzword. But if you go into the cloud, you just have to do it, right? Otherwise, you build systems that can't be accessed by other systems. Yeah. Decoupling, very important. Lightweight components, again, I avoided talking about microservices here. You need an enterprise event hub. Yeah? You need something that is your backbone in your enterprise, which is handling events. I guess this substitutes your kind of enterprise process management kind of backbone. And deploy features, not releases. Yeah? If you build a new feature, deploy it. Yeah? Don't wait until you have enough features to create a sensible release.
But in reverse, what's your favorite saying? Stop?
Oh yeah, stop. This is very important. Yeah,
I've got a bet with him, so you've got to say it.
This is a good one. This is a good one, which is actually this pipelining approach there's one recommendation to do it, which is actually stop starting and start finishing. Yeah, because you can start a lot, and then your backlog grows and grows and grows, and you never get anything done. Yeah, finish something that you started before starting the next thing. Yeah? And don't start the next thing before you finish the one before. And infrastructure is code. Yeah? Infrastructure is code. In the digital world, infrastructure is not a physical server. In digital, infrastructure are lines of code. Yeah? So that's basically it. And again, the headline, going digital is a journey, not the end state. I think this is very important, and I think this is one of the most important takeaways, hopefully, for you. So thank you very much, Jonathan. I know we overran. Sorry for that.
2 minutes.
He's looking like really nervous now. But, yeah. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I mean, we are around for the whole day, and happy to answer any questions.